Welcome back, Fantasy Endgame family, Fantasy Endgame baseball family. We're back midweek-ish to break down kind of what's happened so far, get you ready for the rest of the week. Hopefully you're off to a great start this week. And we have some news. I don't want to call it big news, but it's some news. It's a trade. It's always exciting when there's a trade, right? So we got Biggio, not Craig Biggio, Cavan Biggio. Is that how you pronounce his name? Kevin?
I'm going to go with Kevin, but I think however you like it.
We'll go with Kevin. Kevin Biggio is now a Dodger. So two things here. Number one, does this do anything for his fantasy value? And number two, is this a sign of more things to come from the Blue Jays? Should we be looking for the Blue Jays to be trading off more pieces here?
Yeah, well, like you said, this is a major deal because, let's face it, Biggio, I mean, he wasn't really part of the Blue Jays' plans. In fact, I think they had already designated him for assignment. The Dodgers just kind of scooped him up. So this could help them, but this isn't really a big earth-shaking move for either side, right? I think what it does is, first of all, it'll, always raises an eyebrow when there's a trade with a known player, right? Let's face it, he wasn't great. But a known player, and between these teams, that's what it is you have a team that is pretty much always ready to be a buyer at the Dodgers. But the Blue Jays, we talked about just last week, I think it was, right? Talked about, are they going to be sellers? Are they going to make any major moves? Well, you got to wonder now if this is just the introduction, right? The start of maybe some other moves. Now, just because Kevin Biggio was dealt doesn't mean Vlad Guerrero Jr. is going to get dealt. It doesn't necessarily mean Bo Bichette and these other players are going to get dealt. But I think it does give you at least some insight into maybe the mindset here and the fact that the Blue Jays are now talking to other teams. And I don't know. I don't think it makes sense for them not to be buyers. I mean, they're barely under 500. I get that. They're technically still in contention. But when was the last time, if at all this season, did it ever feel like the Blue Jays were actually a contender? It really hasn't felt like that all season. So I do think this could be the start of something more. Now as far as does it mean anything for Biggio? No, he's a utility guy. I mean, that's really all he's been since his first couple of seasons. He just never really broke through after his rookie season. For the Dodgers, it's depth.
All right, depth for the Dodgers. Not for your fantasy team though. You can ignore it, but keep an eye out on the Blue Jays. They could be moving some of these other guys. We will see. All right, how about some bigger name players that we could be seeing back on the field soon? Talking about some pitchers who are starting to make their way back from rehab. Let's start with Garrett Cole, obviously the biggest name out there. Was really one of the top draft picks before his preseason injury there. So now we're getting word that he could debut this month, late June at the latest. So you got Garrett Cole. You drafted him. You've been holding him. Garrett Cole is back, let's say, in a week or two. Are you instantly putting Garrett Cole out there as your starting pitcher?
That's the tricky question here with a guy like this who hasn't pitched. I mean, all season, right? Is the trust, right? What do you trust that he's going to be good right away? You trust he's going to stay healthy, of course. Do you trust he's going to be the same guy? I think with somebody who is a veteran, you pretty much need to just put him in there if you've been stashing him. I'm not going to wait. Sometimes I like to be more cautious. Let's take a wait and see approach. I don't think you need to wait with Cole. They're not going to put him out there.
All right, dogs are going nuts there. They are excited for Garrett Cole potentially being back on the field soon, apparently. Now let's talk about another pitcher who was on the field this year briefly for looks like 3 starts. That's Bobby Miller of the Dodgers. Now, in those 3 starts, it wasn't fantastic. He had a 5.40 ERA. He had a 1.45 WHIP. He did strike out 18 batters in 11 innings, so that's encouraging. But when you look at it last year, He had a 3.76 ERA, a 1.1 WHIP, and also struck out about a batter per inning. So again, same question here. Bobby Miller, rehab start. They're saying maybe back in a week. Bobby Miller returns to your fantasy team. Are you instantly throwing Bobby Miller out there, or is it going to depend on who he's facing?
This was a little different. And again, this isn't just age and experience. It's not just that. But also, he hasn't necessarily given them the same track record. He's not someone that for a fact when he goes out there, he's getting good stuff. Yeah. That was right when we started live, right?
Yeah, the dogs are on fire today.
Anyways, Bobby Miller. I would like to see also, here's the other thing. I feel like with Cole, the Yankees aren't going to put him out there unless they know he's ready to go 5-6 innings, right? Give him a full start. With Bobby Miller, I could see it where he's only going to go 4 or 5 innings. He's going to be handled with a shorter leash. And that's where I think the age does come into play. You know what I mean? So you may not get enough out of him for fantasy that you want to put him in your lineup right away. That's, part of the equation here. But you got to be excited to get Bobby Miller back. So I do think with Garrett Cole, you're not getting a buy low window because everybody knows who Garrett Cole is. With Miller, there's still maybe some question. I mean, I know he was very exciting on draft day. People were all over him. He's probably drafted too high, to be honest. But the fact that it's been so long and he doesn't have the same name value, it's easy to now forget, right? That recency bias from last year of how he was last year is gone now. And the recency bias we have is like, this guy hasn't pitched in a while. You know what I mean? So I do think there could be a buy low window for Bobby Miller.
All right, speaking about a buy low window and speaking of age, going from a very young pitcher, how about a 31-year-old pitcher who was a rookie last year and has not made an appearance this year? That is Kodai Senga. But he was great last year for the Mets. 2.98 ERA, a 1.22 WHIP, struck out 202 batters in 166 innings. You'll take that all day. Has not pitched at all this season due to injury. But he's got some bullpen sessions, but this is a little bit longer term out. They're saying more like after the All-Star break. Is Senga, I'm pretty sure Senga is a guy you traded for a while back and you've been waiting on. So is he still in your mind a buy low here?
Well, try to get some in before that. No, I don't know. With Senga, I am still holding him in a couple of leagues just because I have room. But man, this is taking a lot longer than we hoped. So, I mean, now we're talking about he's just barely starting to throw, and it's just going to be a long process, it seems like. And also talk about potential sellers. The Mets, as we talked about last week, is another team that could have already sold off a lot of pieces, which means sure Senga is going to be there, but for what kind of a team is he pitching for at that point? With Senga, I don't know honestly if I would say that you have to hold him if you're just overloaded with injured players, which you might be. But yeah, this one's very discouraging because he was set. I mean, I was all over Senga on draft season. I thought he was going to be a great value for fantasy this year. Hasn't quite come together because you have to pitch for that to happen.
Yes. Yeah, you got to be on the field to be a value. Speaking of a guy who you got to be on the field to be a value, one of the best pitchers of this generation, Max Scherzer. I know you feel like he's a buy low because if you watched the buy low video, which came out today, which if you haven't watched that, you should go watch it after this. You had Max Scherzer on there. I was not expecting that, but you had Max Scherzer on there. So you're calling him a buy low now, saying he's almost ready. So is this like a buy really low or like a buy low?
Yeah, and then just to clarify. Now, I did say this. It's like it doesn't mean I'm necessarily going out and buying him, but you never know. I mean, every league is different, right? Guys, somebody who's had Max Scherzer all year might not want to move him, but I do think if you're in need of pitching, you need a boost, right? if you're down in the standings, this is the kind of player that maybe you can take a chance on. You know what I mean? With Senga, that would be great if he was pitching in the next couple of weeks or so, but it sounds like it's too far off. And like I said, with Garrett Cole, you're not getting really any sort of buy low window at all because nobody's selling him low. And I just think that it's possible with Scherzer that you can get him on the cheap, pretty cheap, probably cheaper than all these other pitchers that we've mentioned so far. Is going to be as good as those others? No, obviously not. But I think he'll still provide some good quality. So that's, again, here I'd say I am emphasizing the low part more than anything.
All right. So buy low if it's truly low. Now, is this even a buy low? Is this play? I gotta even check. Is he even rostered in most leagues? What's this guy's rostered? I'm leaving everybody in suspense. He is 27% rostered. So not even a buy low. This is more like are you willing to add him? A pitcher that we have not seen since 2022, and we only saw him for 6 games in 2022. That is Shane Baz of Tampa Bay. Now, prior to that, well, he wasn't good in 2022, but probably some of that was the injury, of course. But if you look at him in 2021 as a rookie, he was great, 2.03 ERA. Granted, it was only 3 games, had 18 strikeouts in 13 innings, small sample size here, 0.675 whip. He's still a young pitcher. He's got potential. Says pitching in AAA could come up anytime now. Are you stashing Shane Baz?
I think this is the time, and it's gone under the radar. I know early in the season, a lot of people were interested in Baz and when he's going to come back, and then it got kind of pushed back, his return. He had some sort of a minor setback. But then we haven't heard much about him. But now it seems like this is one of those things that could sneak up on us. You know what I mean? It's like now that we forget about him, all of a sudden, he could come back. So we'll see. Tampa Bay could have several pieces now start to come back. Springs, as somebody mentioned, stashing. He could return soon. But Baz is the one you've got to be interested in. And like you said, you don't need to buy low for the most part because he is available in most leagues. And in fact, right now, what's actually really appealing, and depends on your league's format, but because he is in the minors, you can put him in an NA spot if you have one. So this is a great stash. So now, of course, pretty much every league I'm in, he's already owned. But in most people's leagues, he's not. He's out there. So yeah, this is a good time to start speculating on some of these Tampa Bay pitchers who could be returning.
Yeah, 27% roster percentage on Yahoo. So out there in about 2/3 of fantasy leagues, a little more than 2/3 of fantasy leagues. So if he's out there and you got an NA spot, go stash him. And then let's talk about a closer. Let's finish with a closer. At least I think he could be considered a closer because before he went on IL, he blew 3 straight saves. He blew 4 out of his last 5 save opportunities. And he had a game late in May where he blew a 4-run lead in the 9th inning to your mighty Miami Marlins. That didn't count as a blown save because it wasn't a save opportunity. And of course, I'm talking about Edwin Diaz, and we heard all the things about him, talking about his confidence, his mental break. He went on the IL. He's coming off the IL pretty soon. The Mets have already said he's the closer when they activate him. Which Edwin Diaz are we going to see? Are we going to see the guy who's one of the best closers in the game? Or are we going to see the guy that can't hold a save to save his life?
Well, I think we have to bet on the first, which is he's going to be the Edwin Diaz that we know and want on our fantasy teams. Sometimes you just need a little mental reset. He had it. It doesn't sound like the injury was anything serious.
Was it even a physical injury, or was this just like, give this guy a break?
You never know. It does happen sometimes, right? A guy gets rocked for a couple straight outings, and all of a sudden, is an injury that nobody saw coming, a phantom injury. Anyways, the fact that they're going to come out and say publicly, which they didn't need to say, like, yeah, that's it. As soon as he's ready, he's our closer. I think that's probably more about the rest of the bullpen than about him, right? Because it's pretty obvious nobody else wants that job because nobody did anything to keep it. But I don't think they would just come out and say that if they didn't think he was ready also. So this is a great, and I didn't put him on buy low. I'm going to be a lot more cautious with a closer, than some of these other pitchers. But also the fact he is still on the IL. So, hey, if you need saves, you need a boost. This might be, again, it's a risky move to take on somebody like this, but this might be one of those things that turns around a season, because you think, he's been horrible. He wasn't horrible all season. He was horrible for a couple of weeks stretch, right? And then it led into the confidence thing and then the injury thing. And all we feel and hear is bad, right? Bad juju with Edwin Diaz. I think like this has been like a train wreck, but it hasn't been. He's had a little bad stretch. So I'm not going to let that overwhelm everything else we've seen from him. I'm going to say that, yeah, if you need help, as far as getting a closer, just want to take advantage of this market, then this is the time to do it.
All right, there you go. If you need a closer and you're willing to bet on him bouncing back, being mentally strong, go get Edwin Diaz. Now, time to answer your questions, but I know what you do need. You need to go try Underdog's Pick 8. That's right. You can now pick up to 8 players, 8 pick'ems. It doesn't have to be 8 different players. You can do multiple picks for the same player. As long as you pick, I think, one player from 2 different games, I think you're okay. I could be wrong on that. But anyways, Underdog, who is always coming out with new cool stuff, has introduced their Pick 8, which is awesome. So you make 8 picks, and you don't even have to get them all right. Now, if you get all 8 right, you could potentially win up to 325 times your money, which is absolutely insane. But even if you miss one, you triple your money, or even more, depending if you use Scorchers. And even if you miss 2, I think you double your money or you get your money back. I forget. So there's even a little bit of, leeway baked in here for you. You don't have to get all 8 right. It's like an 8-team parlay, but as long as you get 6 right, you don't lose. So really cool thing Underdog is doing here. And another cool thing Underdog always does, well, they always do promos and specials, but for right now, for new customer special, Shohei Ohtani just needs to walk up to the plate one time. Doesn't have to do it. Like, he can walk, he can strike out, he can hit a home run. He just has to show up to the batter's box one time, and you win that pick. You put that with the other 7 picks, and now your pick 8 is basically a pick 7, because this one is guaranteed locked in there for you. And as you can see scrolling down there, if you haven't tried Underdog Fantasy yet and you want to check this out, which you should, make sure when you do, you sign up using promo code ENDGAME, because not only are you going to get this Shohei Ohtani new customer special pick, but you're also going to get a deposit match up to $250 in bonus cash that you can use right away on a pick 8 or on just any pick'ems or even fantasy football drafts, or if they do weekly baseball drafts, maybe even daily baseball drafts. You got everything on Underdog. They have every sport. Really, really, really is a very ton of fun. Highly recommend you check it out. Just a great way to enjoy fantasy sports another way, and a lot of fun. And like I said, they're going to give you like $250 that you can use. So you don't even have to use your own money to try it out. You can try it out using their money. If you don't like it, okay. Oh, well, you lost their money. Not a big deal. All right. But we're here to answer your questions for your Q&A. As always, we're going to be here, try to get through as many as we can. We do, speaking of fantasy football, we do have a fantasy football mock draft after this. So if you want to come join us on the football channel after this, you can do that. So we'll get through as many as we can. If you don't want to wait, if you're impatient, or you just want to say thanks, or you did a pick 8 and you won, and you're like, hey guys, I won my pick 8. Let me pay it forward. You can drop a super chat that will get you to the front of the line, guaranteed. Not necessary, but if you're able to and you want to, that is an option. All right, let's start with Harry, who's here right at the beginning. What's up, Harry? Always here with us. Interesting question here. Ronald Acuna was the best player in fantasy baseball last year, was the consensus number 1 pick this year, wasn't off to the same start he was off to last year, but he was still good. But he just tore his ACL for the 2nd time in his career. Looking ahead to next year, where do you think people will be drafting Ronald Acuna?
That's a great question. Now, the obvious is it really depends on, his readiness, his health situation. So I guess let's just pretend here that we're saying, he's ready for opening day, right? Because if he's not, they're saying that, like this just happened, let's say, was it May, right? He's injured in May, a year. Typically, we look at maybe a little less for a guy who, even though he does rely a lot on his speed, but he's been through this before. He knows how to rehab. Okay, but is he really going to be ready for opening day full 100%? I don't know. But let's pretend he is. I think based on what he's done in the past, his upside, I can see some people taking him toward the end of round 1. If you hear good news about him leading up to opening day. If there's any hesitation, any concern, hear anything, maybe he won't run as much, whatever, he's going to drop probably more towards like round 3. I think round 2 sounds about right. But like you said, let's remember too, he's been through this before. And, besides his ridiculous season last year, before that, the year he was coming off an injury, it wasn't really what we wanted, right? It wasn't exactly, I don't think we can expect 70 steals next year, even if he is out there on opening day, right? So I don't know that he does belong, honestly, in round 2, but that's probably what he'll be taken.
All right, so projecting round 2. Of course, it will depend on his recovery and what we're hearing going into next draft season, of course. All right, Rafael Juarez, what's up? Good to see you. 10-team category league. Is it worth having Yimi Garcia? He's his only closer. Most teams in his league have 2 to 3 closers. He might be one of only 2 or 3 teams without a closer. Look, I'm going to say right now, I'm not drafting a closer next year. But what say you, Pierre?
It's nice, and I get it if you don't want to invest in the headache that is closers. That's fine. I like to at least have one guy out there to keep me afloat so I'm not at the bottom of the standings in that one. I don't like to punt. Typically, tried punting categories before. I think you're just kind of making life harder for yourself. But if there is a category to punt, I think it might be saves. But even if you just get one kind of anchor for your bullpen, that's typically best. I would say it's worth having Yimi Garcia because at least he maybe can get you enough saves to keep you from the bottom. But if you're already dead last in saves and there's no point, trying to keep up, what you could do is try to trade him. Closers always have value. Now, I know he's a temporary closer because Romano will eventually come back, but maybe trade him to the Romano owner, the guy who has him on the IL right now. Maybe he could use him, and that makes him feel like he can have some insurance. So that's my thing always. If I have somebody who's getting saves, he's got value to someone, even if it's not to you.
All right, and he's got another question. Are we holding on to Rooker? I assume he means Brent Rooker. Or is this a repeat of last year? Now, Rooker, you look at his season stats, they look pretty good. He's batting .263, has 13 home runs, 26 runs, 40 RBIs. I would take that on my fantasy team all day. But the last 2 weeks, he's batting .208 with only 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, 3 runs. And over the last week, batting .154 with 1 home run. So what Rooker are we going to get?
This feels exactly like last year. Exactly like last year. Guy who, start the season, nobody even gave a second thought about. And all of a sudden goes on a tear and, just the hottest hitters in the league, which is exactly what he was a few weeks ago, and then just kind of disappears. This feels exactly like this. Some players are just like this, right? Every player goes through streaks, right? Hit streaks and cold slumps or whatever, but some players are more extreme. I think he's just that type of extreme player. So I'm going to say it's a repeat of last year. You don't have to hold him, especially, Rafa, you're saying you're in a 10-team league? Yeah, you definitely don't have to hold him, Rooker.
All right, there you go. Can't get right. Apparently can't get a catcher. Needs a catcher since he lost JT Realmuto. Who is realistically out there that you'd be targeting at catcher for everybody that lost them?
I think an interesting name is a guy who just got activated off the IL, Francisco Alvarez. He's available in quite a few leagues because he was hurt, and it's not like he was lighting up before then, but he's got power. Like, let's face it, you're not going to replace that batting average at catcher. So at least you can go for some home runs, right? So go for Alvarez. He might be out there. In fact, I just scooped him up in our league. And then another guy who I did have temporarily was Connor Wong. Now, he's the one guy who could help you with batting average, but he's not going to give you power. So this kind of depends what you're looking for. Wong for average, Alvarez for power. Langoliers is, if Alvarez isn't available, also a power-only option. He might hurt your average, but at least you're getting home runs. And then the other side to the Wong is if you want average, at least somewhat of a decent batting average, but probably not power, is Ivan Herrera for the Cardinals. So those are probably the options I would look for depending on what you need category-wise.
All right. What about option number 5? Just not playing, just not having a catcher. Verlis wants to know, is going without a catcher a horrible strategy? You know what, Verlis? I think about this sometimes, not necessarily going without a catcher, but it's like, is it just better not to put some guy in who's going to go 0 for 4 in my lineup and just take the 0 for 0? Anyways, he's saying he could use it. I mean, obviously, it's better to take the 0 for 0 than the 0 for 4. Because at least the 0 for 0 doesn't affect your batting average. He's saying you could use another starting pitcher. So, if you had to, like, let's say your catcher was just very mediocre, would you just say, screw it, I'm just going to take a 0 from my catcher every week and go get another starting pitcher? Have you ever considered this?
No. Because even though it's tempting, I know you're like, yeah, you get tired of seeing the offers and you feel like this is a drain. Think about it this way. Just got to look at mathematically. Let's just say you're a typical roto league, right? 5x5. You got 5 hitting categories, and you're just like, this guy's a bum. You're like, he's hitting 150, and he doesn't do anything for me. Okay, so he's giving you a negative, let's say, in batting average. That's one category, 1 out of 5. Even the worst catcher, maybe not the worst catcher, but even the worst of the guys who are at least playing, if they're decent enough to play, right? Once in a while, he'll get you a home run. Once in a while, he'll get you some RBIs. Stolen bases, maybe not, but it'll get you something. So if you go the rest of the season, you're getting 0, exactly 0, right? With no catchers, 0 home runs, 0 RBIs, 0 runs, 0 stolen bases, and 0 average. Okay, so that doesn't hurt your average, but you could have gotten maybe 5 home runs, 12 RBIs, some runs scored. That's production that you're not getting. You see what I mean? So you're hurting yourself, or at least you're not helping yourself in 4 categories to spare 1 category. So that doesn't really make sense. You know what I mean? Even if he gets you a couple home runs, that's more than 0. So try somebody new, see if somebody gets out, mix and match, right? I don't know who, if you're in a 12-team league, you should be able to get somebody who's at least adequate. I mean, the guys I just mentioned are probably, at least some of them, are available in 12-team leagues. Even guys who look terrible as far as over the course of the season could get better. Keibert Ruiz for Washington, I mentioned him a couple weeks ago. He's been better lately. He's actually supposed to be a good hitter. He just hasn't been this year, but that's somebody who maybe he gets hot. You know what I mean? So is it a horrible strategy? Yeah, I don't think it's a winning strategy.
All right. Talked him off the ledge. Don't drop your catcher. Or at least don't drop him for a starting pitcher. Drop him for a different catcher if you want, but not for a starting pitcher. All right, Brandon Norris wants to know, would you drop Hunter Brown for Drew Thorpe?
Wow. I'm not dropping Hunter Brown now because he's just starting to be good. So I would pick up Drew Thorpe if I could, but I'm not dropping Hunter Brown. Hopefully there's somebody else you could drop. But I just called Hunter Brown last week a buy low, and sure enough, he's delivered his last time out. I think it was a pretty good start. So I don't want to go all in on the Hunter Brown, renaissance or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I think I'm going to keep Brown.
All right, keep Brown. All right, James Coffey. What's up, James? Somebody dropped Adolis Garcia in his redraft roto league.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather have him or Luis Robert Jr.? So are you debating dropping Luis Robert Jr. for Adolis Garcia? You don't have anybody worse?
I was going to say.
Or are they both on waiver? Are they both on waiver and you can only add one?
Even in an 8-team league. I mean, okay. I guess this might be like they saw the thumbnail for this week's panic video, and they're like, "What's going on with Adolis Garcia?" I did not say to drop Garcia. Hopefully nobody dropped Garcia because of that. Look, Garcia will get better. If he was dropped, you have to pick him up. But would I rather have him or Luis Robert? I would rather have Robert. So I don't know what's going on in your league here. These guys are just out there, or at least Garcia's out there. People do this all the time. And look, I will have to say this. I'm guilty of not doing it, even though I don't always practice what I preach, just because I always get myself into too many leagues and I just forget. Always check the waiver wire, even if you're like, oh, this guy, sometimes you're looking, this guy's hot. Let me see, or I need a catcher because mine's hurt or whatever. Even if you don't need anything, even if you're not actively looking on the waiver wire, always check the waiver wire because people do this. People will drop good players for absolutely no reason. Like a pitcher will have one bad start. Like, forget it. He's done. Like I'm tired of this Shota guy. He's a bum. Just always check. Pick up Garcia, but I would rather have Robert.
All right. If they're both out there, try to get them both. But if they're, you can only get one, get Robert.
Yeah.
All right. And I can't believe it, but there's no more questions. We're only 30 minutes in and we're through the questions already. It's the dog days of summer, apparently. It's Wednesday. And all right, well, here we go. Actually, HPHP coming to the rescue. What's up, HPHP? Welcome. Who gets called up first and who's more worth holding on to rest of the season? Walker or Kjerstad?
Good question. Kjerstad we saw. I mean, he got the call, didn't stay long. I almost feel like, with Baltimore, this is just what we're going to see this year. How long did Norby last? Right, he was up for as long as it took Mateo to come off of IL, and that was it. Even Jackson Holiday. I mean, obviously he demoted himself with how horrible he was, but still, they don't have any compulsion to keep these guys up unless they really perform. Cowser has stayed up, which is nice, but he was there since opening day, and just don't think it's worth holding Kjerstad right now because don't feel like even if he gets called up next that he's going to stick around or get playing time. That's what happened last time. We picked up Kjerstad. We thought he was going to rake, and then he didn't even play more than once every 4 days or whatever it was. So I'm going to have to say Walker.
All right, there you go. Walker it is. Thank you for the question. Appreciate you hopping on here. Hopefully we'll see you back next time. All right. Anything else, guys? I mean, I will just throw in Angelo's always here. Says a lot of our 10-team leagues do ride without a catcher. Interesting.
Is it 10-team league? I mean, come on. You can't tell me there's not at least 10 catchers worth playing. I mean, it can't be that bad.
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I just want to bench my whole lineup. Like, is that a thing?
I feel that way too. Sometimes I don't want to put anybody in a catcher, but it doesn't mean you should.
Yesterday, my team somehow went 2 for 36. 2 for 36. So,
but among those guys were some really, really good players, and just look, even good players have bad days, bad weeks. It's just that's the way it is.
And then I somehow got 2 strikeouts in 10 innings. 2 in 10 innings.
That's impressive.
It's like I should have just not played today. Just, all right, guys. I'm taking today off. I'll see you guys on Wednesday. All right, we got a question from Victor. What's up, Victor? What do I do? Okay, here we go. Randy Arozarena doesn't think he's worth the wait anymore. Can he get a good starting pitcher for him or package him for a better hitter? What are you doing if you have Randy Arozarena?
I mean, I understand if you're not wanting to wait anymore. Look, maybe he doesn't come back around and have one of his typical seasons. So I doubt you'll get a really good pitcher for him right now. You can try, but I'm going to guess no. Package him for a better hitter. That's probably a better idea if you throw him in with somebody else. You're probably going to look for an owner in your league that needs at least steals. That power, something that Rosarena can give. A team at the bottom of the standings that's going to take a chance on him. Right? Like I said, this is the time of the year where you look at the standings, it starts to matter, right? The teams that need a spark are willing to do this, right? Whoever's top 3, 4 in the standings, they're not going to take on a guy who's struggling. So look for the owners in your league who need help, especially on offense, try to package him, and then see what you can get. I mean, it just depends on the makeup of their roster.
Yeah, looking at his stats here, batting 175, 283 on base percentage, 319 slugging. What? Man, what is going on? What is going on? Apparently, he's just a bum. He's just a bum.
Well, so far that's what the stats tell us. I mean, look, has he been much better lately? It doesn't seem like it. In June, he is hitting 296. I mean, he's coming around a little bit. I know that's not a lot of games, but still.
All right, and then HPHP asking if it's time to drop CES. I think it is, right? Because Reds manager David Bell revealed Tuesday that he may have season-ending surgery.
Yeah, you can definitely drop him.
Yeah.
I mean, even if he comes back, I mean, what's the best case scenario? He was horrible before he got hurt, so yeah, you can definitely drop him.
All right, Uwe2K, what's up? Good to see you. Drop either or both Barrios or Olsen. I assume Reese Olsen? Not Matt Olsen, right? It's got to be Reese Olsen.
Probably Reese.
For Waldron or Fetty?
Yeah, definitely don't drop Barrios. He's been great all season. Yeah, so don't drop Barrios. Olsen, I think, is droppable. I'm going to pick up Fetty if he's out there. Fetty has been good all year, and he's one of those players, and we're just waiting and hoping he gets traded, because wherever he goes has to be an upgrade, and he might actually get some more wins. So I would say you've got to keep Barrios, but drop Olsen for Fetty.
All right, there you go. Sid Buckley, what's up? Would you feel more comfortable with Vlad or Olsen? This someone I'm sure is Matt Olsen.
Yeah.
The rest of the way.
And that's a close one, because this also kind of depends on what you want to be more comfortable with. Because Vlad's getting you at least decent batting average, which Olsen is not. Olsen at least has a few home runs. Vlad's power, like, where is it? This guy was supposed to be one of the best power hitters in the game. Just, I guess, only for derbies, not for game time. I don't know. The Braves offense has been one of the worst, really, since the Acuna injury. I mean, I don't know if this is just like a team funk, that they're just all down in the dumps because of this. After Strider, I mean, are they really just gonna just throw in the towel? Like, this is it? I don't think so. I think Olsen's got to be better, but at the same time, you figure Vlad's got to get better. If they start selling pieces, though, I don't think Vlad is one of them. But what happens to the lineup around him, right? They move guys here and there, and then all of a sudden they're not a contender. So I will say I'm going to slightly lean Olsen, because I think that offense has to get significantly better. I mean, both these teams have been majorly disappointing, but I'm going to lean Olsen.
All right. Slightly lean to Olsen there. Thank you for the question. Ryan Bernard, what's up? I think what he's trying to say here, he says, I think what he's trying to say is he's got a decent amount of pitchers. Like, he's not hurting a starting pitcher. So would you drop Waldron for Noel Marte, who you talked about in the Beat the Breakout this week? And then he could also apparently drop Jonathan India to stash Marte. So would you drop either of these guys to stash Marte?
Right. Yes and yes. Waldron has been really good, but again, this is a guy who, any knuckleball pitcher, but any pitcher in general, he was a great waiver wire find, but there will come a time where he gets lit up. I don't think he's going to continue in this current pace. So I would definitely drop Waldron for Marte if you don't need pitching. And then Nate here, would you drop India to stash Marte? Yeah, I think India was a nice little buy low, but I think Marte's upside is definitely much better.
Yeah, I'm going to get a lot of buzz. I added Marte myself. Hopefully he pays off. We'll see. All right, how about another catcher question? HPHP, but this time he's going to actually play a catcher. Yanier Ruiz, who stays in your lineup and who goes?
With Yanier, in fact, checking right now, he was hurt. He's been hurt, but I think
he's got a little finger thing. They haven't been putting him in the lineup. I know this because he's on my team. He's a little finger thing. They're like, he's available to hit if we need him, like as a pinch hitter, but they haven't been putting him in the lineup. So it doesn't sound too serious. Okay. But he hasn't played the last 2 days.
All right. Yeah, I want to make sure he's not like headed to the injured list. So if he comes back, I think you got to go Yanier because he woke up. He's finally hitting home runs, and he's still part of that lineup. So over Ruiz, yeah, I'll go Yanier.
So the Astros manager Joe Espada expects Diaz to be available, Yanier Diaz to be available to return to the lineup for Friday's game against the Tigers. So, okay, I don't know. Do they play? They don't play tomorrow. They don't play tomorrow, so he'll be back next game on Friday. So there you go.
All right. So don't keep him in your lineup today or tomorrow because he won't be in there. But Friday you can put him back.
There you go. All right. We did talk about Adolis Garcia a little bit because somebody dropped him. So don't drop him. We're not dropping him. What are we doing with him? Are we holding him, or are we trying to sell him? What are we doing with him?
Which, yeah. By the way, I think James. Well, it was James who said it. Garcia and Luis Robert. He said both of them are just on waivers in that league.
Get them.
Man, it's like I wish, but I also am glad I don't play in a league like that, because it's like, come on. But yeah, James, pick them up both. Pick both up. If Garcia got dropped, pick him up. If you have him, I think it's okay to bench a player who's slumping, no matter how good he is. It's always okay, but don't drop him. Right? He's gonna get better.
Don't drop him. Don't drop him. All right, James Coffey again traded JD Martinez for Anthony Volpe yesterday, and then watched your buy low video. Where he messed up? Did he mess up?
No, because JD Martinez, Anthony Volpe, to me, not exactly the same level of league. Yes, you can go out and buy JD Martinez, but when I say low, like to me, Volpe is not low. In fact, I'm probably higher still in Volpe from fantasy than a lot of people. In fact, if you saw the top 50 rest of the season rankings for hitters, I had him pretty high. I'm going to say I would much rather have Volpe. Volpe is going to give you something that Martinez isn't, which is stolen bases, right? In terms of batting average, similar. Probably I would say Volpe might wind up with a better batting average, but similar. Yeah, obviously Martinez gets you power, but Volpe is scoring a ton of runs. He's at the top of the Yankees lineup. So no, I don't think he messed up at all. I think this is a good trade for you.
All right, there you go. You can take solace in the fact that you didn't mess up. All right, HPHP again. Rest of the season, who will have better numbers, Torres or Geloff? Gleyber Torres? We haven't had a Gleyber Torres question in a while. Or is that Geloff? He's trying to figure out who we can drop with no regrets.
I mean, at this point, I don't think you need to regret dropping either one. I mean, it's not going to torture you. Between the two, not because I'm still like hopelessly tied to Gleyber Torres, but just because it's pretty obvious Geloff is not doing it this year. I think if you have to pick one, probably just stick with Torres. I mean, he's in the Yankees lineup. Geloff is in the A's lineup. I mean, it's kind of that simple. But yeah, I would say you don't have to hold Geloff. Somebody can't remember who it was. I saw maybe it was Joe Orico on Twitter. He's one of those analysts I kind of follow. He does these little quick hits every day, which is nice. But talking about Zach Geloff, just when he heated up, right? And I even said, hey, maybe it's time to go back and pick him up. And then he's back to being bad. At this point, if you drafted him thinking he was a great sleeper, you don't have to hold on to him just because of like the sunk cost fallacy. You're like, well, he's going to do it. Like, I feel like he's going to break out. Like, forget when you drafted him, forget last year, forget everything except for what has he done this year. He's sucked this year.
All right, James Coffey wants to know, could you offer some rest of the season insight into Royce Lewis in a roto league, provided the big kind of thing you always have to say here, provided he can stay healthy?
I love Royce Lewis. I'm a sucker for Royce Lewis. If he's healthy, fantasy stud. That's it. It's that simple. I mean, like Anthony Volpe, but with more power. So I'm all in on Lewis. I don't know. I think he probably could because people are nervous about his injury history, which is totally understandable. Or he just hasn't done a lot yet this season because he's been injured. If you can go get Royce Lewis on the cheap, do it. But yeah, I love Lewis. He can help you in every category. And if the Twins decide they want to be buyers and they get a JD Martinez, they get somebody else to make that offense even better. I mean, yeah, you're looking at a legit stud.
All right, there you go. All right, how about this one? HPHP again. Is Eloy Jimenez worth the stash? We didn't talk about why the White Sox could be sellers, could be traded to a contender. Is he worth the stash?
Yeah, well, talk about guys who are always hurt. Here we go, Eloy Jimenez. Possibly. I think possibly. He's definitely a sneaky stash. But, man, he's also a guy who runs hot and cold. Worth a stash? Sure. If you got space. But, yeah, he's just another, constant headache, isn't he?
A headache I dropped a long time ago. All right, Victor. We did talk about Shane Baz a little bit in the intro there, but he's probably just joining us. Do you think he'll go deeper than 5 innings per game when he gets called up? He's got Jordan Hicks, who never seems to go more than 5 innings. So, will he get 5 or more innings out of Shane Baz?
That's a great observation. That's exactly right. In fact, our league, where we play, we use quality starts instead of wins. I wound up dropping Jordan Hicks after a while because I got tired of seeing him pulled in the 5th, right? 5 innings, 5 1/3, 5 2/3, never 6 or more. In the beginning of the year, the very beginning of the year, he was going deep into games. And I think the Giants finally were like, wait, hold on, wait a minute. Maybe this isn't a great idea for a guy who's always hurt and has never been a starter over the course of a full season. Yeah, I don't think Baz really goes more than 5 innings. So if you're looking for quality starts, Baz is less appealing. Obviously, they're going to limit him. But also, I think that he will eventually get there. I don't think it'll take too long. But we can't realistically expect him to go 6-7 innings, his first couple of starts.
All right, Uwe 2K again. If you had to drop one of these guys, which one is it? Adolis Garcia, Alex Burleson, Elliot Ramos, or David Fry?
If I had to drop one, it's not going to be Garcia. We already established that. I'm not really in on Burleson because I know he's been hot, but guy does not have a lot of power, upside. Still in kind of an anemic lineup. Yeah, it's Burleson. At least with Fry, he's going to come crashing down to earth. But at least with Fry, you can stick him at catcher. You can stick him infield, outfield, right? At least he has that flexibility where you can put him in a pinch. Burleson's taking up an outfield spot. I think I'd rather reserve for those other two. So it's Burleson.
All right, get rid of Burleson. Then we got Azcat. Got to be careful when you say that one. Don't want to get YouTube. I guess YouTube doesn't care if you swear, but
anyways. These days I think anything goes.
That's true. All right, trade Santander for Horner, who's coming off injury.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're doing this, it's because A, you're needing speed, and B, because you think Horner is going to actually start stealing more bases. I'm fine with this. Santander is okay, but he's not moving the needle big time either way in fantasy, so I think it's worth a shot. Horner's probably not going to come close to what he did last year, even besides his little IL stint, but I still feel like the Cubs are one of those teams that also has underachieved, but will eventually get better. I think they'll figure it out. So, yeah, I think you can do this.
All right. Then he's also saying, first time catching us live. He loves our work. Thank you so much. First year doing MLB. Welcome to the club. Waiting for NFL to start. NFL's already started. We're going to be drafting after this on our NFL channel. Come over there and draft with us. What do you mean?
Yep.
Waiting for it to start? It never ends. It's like baseball. It never ends. All right. Angel Martinez. Would you pick up Andrew Vaughn? So I guess you're dropping Miguel Andujar to pick up Andrew Vaughn.
Well, now we know what Angel's doing in his spare time now that he's retired. I would say yes, you can do this.
Isn't that Angel Hernandez?
Oh, Angel Hernandez. Sorry. Yeah, I dropped Andujar. He was hot for a minute. Whatever. I'm not like totally in on Andrew Vaughn, but sure. I feel like I picked him up in one league just because I was desperate and it was a deep league. Sure. It's fine. I mean, honestly, I think like you could pick up any streamer for Andujar right now.
By the way, wasn't that Angel Hernandez retirement kind of weird? Like just in the middle of the season, after tormenting baseball fans for years and years with his terrible calls, he's like, "All right, okay, fine, I'll leave."
Yeah, mid-season.
Like what? Like did Major League Baseball just say to him finally, like, "Look, dude, here's like $100 million. Please just go away. Just retire. $100 million. Go retire. Go do whatever you want." And he's like, "Okay." Like that was so weird, right?
It was all very weird. Just kidding, Angel. I know it's just not your burner account. Yeah, exactly.
And Teddy also just says, "Keep rocking." Appreciate it, Teddy.
Thank you, Teddy.
Appreciate it. Whoops. Okay, well, I didn't mean to pull this one up, but we'll give HPHP some more airtime. He's had a lot of airtime today. Currently stashing Marte, Lawler, and Mayo. How's he doing?
Marte is great. Lawler, I don't think we're going to see anytime soon. I think he could probably go elsewhere there, not just because he's got this long-term injury, but now Perdomo just came back. Blaze Alexander's at least done enough to, keep himself on the roster, and he's still DHing. He's in the lineup. So, yeah, Lawler, I mean, if you're in a dynasty league, okay, but even then, I don't know how much he's getting you. So definitely keep Marte, definitely keep Mayo, just in case. And then Lawler, again, I get the upside. I had Lawler in a couple of leagues, but I think now his timeline's basically pushed back to next year.
All right, there you go. Unknown Screwdriver, welcome back. And by the way, we know he's always wheeling and dealing. He traded Reagans for C.J. Abrams and Michael Harris.
Every week. Is there another team that every week he's making a major trade? Every week.
I want to know how many players on your team you actually drafted right now. How many did you actually draft, and how many have you traded for? He needs a lot. He needs a live bat. He's got Albies, Bregman, Michael Harris, of course, because he just traded for him, Salvi, and C.J. Abrams because he just traded for him. What should I do? It's a points league.
Yeah, I mean Albies and to some extent Harris. I think just gonna have to hold and wait for them to wake up, that whole offense. So, and you just traded for Harris. I think those guys are totally fine in points league. Yeah, keep them. Might as well keep Bregman because of the format. I mean, I don't think you need to do much. You just got CJ Abrams. I think this was a good time to buy. I mean, you look at that trade that you just mentioned. I like Ray. I'm all over Reagans, but you got two really good hitters for him. So that's a nice move. I would just kind of stand pat for now, I would say, which I know you're not going to do because you're going to go out and make another trade next week. But and then down there you're saying you have Crochet and Keller.
Yeah, he's already thinking about the next trade. He's got Crochet and Mitch Keller as his better pitchers. Stay with them. I mean, but here's the thing. Well, like you can't just keep trading pitchers for hitters, right? Because eventually you're just going to have a team of all hitters, and they're like, well, you need some pitchers.
Yeah, that's the thing is I mean, look, it's smart. You're dealing from your strength. You were dealing your pitchers. You're getting good hitters, and it's a point league. I get this, but you got to be careful. You don't trade away all your good pitchers. Keep Crochet. His value is only going to go up. Don't trade Unknown Screwdriver. Let me just tell you right now, please do not trade Crochet. You can trade Keller. I would say trade Keller for a more solid pitcher because especially if those guys are your two best pitchers, at some point you're going to need pitching. This is a good year to stream pitchers, to pick up pitchers off waivers so that you could have some options. You could just keep streaming. We've been pretty good with that lately. We hit on a few guys. Chris is, I think, in half a year of playing fantasy baseball, has mastered the art of streaming pitchers. Miles Mikolas, that worked out pretty well for you, right?
Yeah, except I dropped him to stash Noelve Marte, but it did work out well. But I will say My streaming pitchers usually are pretty good. I'm getting a feel for who to stream. Although I think it's time I'm going to stop streaming Marcus Stroman. He just seems so meh. I may stop streaming him.
Yeah.
But anyways, and now I did just see Mackenzie Gore was supposed to start tomorrow. It's been pushed back to Friday due to a fingernail issue. This is not good. We'll see. We'll see. And then he did. I know Screwdriver is saying he has 3 players that he drafted. 3 of them.
Hey, this is how you win.
All right, not Angel Hernandez, Angel Martinez. Yeah. Would you rather have Taj Bradley or Tajon Walker rest of the season?
I'm gonna go Bradley. Walker is, like you said, like Stroman's kind of meh. Walker is like a worse version of meh. He's like a poor man's meh. So I'm going to go Bradley for sure. At least got the strikeout upside.
All right. And then as Cat again, he's got Corbin Carroll. Like, how do you just keep him and hope? I mean, what can you really do if you have Corbin Carroll? I mean, if you went out there and said, hey, I'll give you Corbin Carroll, like, what are you realistically giving in return for Corbin Carroll right now? Like, what is this a guy you just have to hold on to him and hope somehow he turns it around?
I know, and I just talked about what sunk cost fallacy. You're like, oh, he was my first round pick. He's supposed to be the best player on my team. And that doesn't really matter anymore. But not because he was your round 1 pick, but because he does have the upside to steal 40 plus bases. He does have the upside, I think, maybe to at least hit for a decent average. I was going to say hit 300, maybe not anymore, but he does have the potential. I mean, I think he will at least be worth rostering. So I don't want to drop him and let somebody else pick him up and then all of a sudden he turns it around. You know what I mean? I think he's at least going to be serviceable. So I wouldn't trade unless somebody's really all in on the Corbin Carroll bounce back second half, because you're probably not going to get good value for him.
Yep, that's the problem. All right, Nick. What's up, Nick? Wants to know, I know we talked about this, I think probably on Sunday, maybe even last week a little bit, but I think you talked about it on some other videos. Do you think Luis Robert Jr. is getting traded? If so, who are the most likely landing spots?
Likely, I mean, yeah, is he getting traded? I don't know now. I mean, this is probably just, smoke, but hearing something about how the White Sox want this ridiculous haul, like they want to get more than what Juan Soto was traded for or something like this. It's like, come on. But realistically, I think he still does get traded. Who the names we're hearing that are probably the most likely, the Mariners are a possibility. The Braves, if they decide that's the direction I want to go. I don't know that the Braves are the most likely landing spot, but it is definitely a possibility. Maybe a team like the Guardians, they decide they want to make a big splash. It's not really their MO, but it is possible. So, yeah, I think probably he does get moved. But this is why you want to keep him and definitely, going to have more value rest of the season.
All right, then unknown screwdriver. We did talk about Randy Arozarena a little bit earlier. He's got some hamstring tightness, and he's barely contributed to his team. Look for something else or hold on tightly.
Well, look, if you're in a points league, I don't think you have to hold on here with Arozarena because he's got less value in that format, striking out still a decent amount, more than ever this year, of course, but the batting average is hurting. The on-base percentage isn't good. The steals don't weigh as much if it's not a roto league. So in your format, I would say you can don't drop, but you can move on from him if somebody's willing to buy.
All right, there you go. All right, we're right about at the hour. So what would look like it was going to be a short one picked up. Appreciate everybody hopping on and asking us questions. And do you want to say as we head out, just one final reminder, because I know we had a lot of new people show up to the show in the last 30 minutes. You probably missed it in the beginning. If you haven't tried Underdog Fantasy yet, you should. It's an awesome site. They're doing football drafts right now, but they're also just introduced this Pick 8 where you can win up to 325 times your money. You just make 8 picks. You don't even have to get them all right. Now, you got to get them all right to get the 325X, of course. But you can get 6 right and you still get your money back. You can get 7 right and you still triple your money, or more than triple your money, potentially, depending on if you use Scorchers and things like that. If you haven't checked it out yet, make sure when you sign up, you use promo code ENDGAME, because that's going to get you access to this new customer special. Shohei Ohtani just needs to show up. As long as he gets 1 plate appearance, you win. It's it. There's one down already. Now you only need 7. And you're going to get up to $250 in bonus cash when you sign up using promo code ENDGAME. So if you haven't tried it out yet, highly recommend it. Now, we're not going to go do an underdog draft right now. We do that on Sundays, but we're going to go do a football mock draft right now. So if you want to check that out, go to our football channel. That's Fantasy Endgame. And we'll be back here Sunday to wrap up the week in baseball, get you ready for the week ahead. Hopefully all your hitters do great. All your pitchers do great. Everybody does great this week. That's what we want. That's why we're here, to help you guys with your teams be more successful. Appreciate you being here. Make sure you check out the videos. We got Buy Low, Beat the Breakout, Waiver Wire coming out Friday. Yes, appreciate everybody being here, and we'll see you all back on Sunday.